This is your daily scripture for January 7th. My name is Henry Loke. This is God's Feeding Station. Honored to be with you again today as we continue in the Gospel of Mark. Mark chapter 5. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you, by God, do not torment me." For he was saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, "Send us to the pigs, let us enter them." So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. The herdsmen fled and told it in the city and in the country, and people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had had the legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And he did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how he has had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." They laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. We have two people who desperately need help today. Jairus and the woman who's got a hemorrhage, I guess, is what you would call it. And they whether they realized it or not, they come in contact with each other for basically the same reasons. They need Jesus. Jairus' daughter, the condition for her is critical. She's at death's door. And so Jairus begs Jesus to come and heal his daughter. But there's going to be a sidetrack here, because there really isn't a moment to spare. From a worldly perspective, there's not a moment to spare. But there's a lesson in this thing, I think, for Jairus and for all of us. So, again, without a moment to spare, Jesus is forced to spare it. He's forced to spare a moment. For as the crowd surrounds him now as he tries to make his way to Jairus' house, a woman with a menstrual issue whose desperation is every bit as urgent as Jairus's, but her approach is a lot quieter, moves toward Jesus. And you can imagine her fighting her way through the crowd. Mark describes her condition as a torment. There's physical suffering and there's shame in this, right? She has a blood flow. She's gone through many doctors. She's exhausted everything she's had. From a money perspective, she's only gotten worse. The physicians caused her to suffer more, and they caused her to lose all her resources. And she's gained nothing out of it. So when you compare her and Jairus' daughter, they both have the same prospects. Nothing. According to the Torah, or our Old Testament, right, Mosaic law, a woman was unclean for 7 days after her monthly period. Now, she's got, with this problem though, she remains unclean throughout her duration. So she cannot attend any services at the synagogue at all. Right? Josephus writes that the temple was closed to women during their menstruation. Whoever would have touched a woman during her menstruation was called unclean. They were banished from the community until purification. So this woman has no hope of anything. She's basically a leper in some sense. Now, Mark doesn't tell us what's in the woman's mind. Nobody really knows, aside from the fact that she believes that Jesus has the power to heal her. She sees something in Jesus, whatever it may be, or she's heard something about him. She may have seen in him the holiness of God and figured that she had nothing to lose. But she does what any disciple should do. Come. She heard about him, she came, she reached out to him. And that's what disciples do. When you hear about Jesus, you always act upon it. And this is what the woman does. And immediately, Mark says the flow of her blood was dried up, and she knew in her body that she had been healed from her curse. It's 12 years. 12 years of shame and frustration are gone in an instant. Jesus now knows that within himself that power's gone out of him. That's how the Greek translates literally. He knows within himself that healing's gone out from him. Now, the woman takes a risk here because they're in public and she does what she's not allowed to do. It's a violation of the Torah for her to be out in public and to touch the hem of Jesus' robe, whatever she touched of his garment. But again, Jesus doesn't look at the law. He looks at the need. He looks at the human need here. And he reacts accordingly. And in all of this is going on, right? Jesus insists, he stops, turns around. He wants to know who touched him, right? Jairus standing there this whole time. Like, okay, my daughter's dying here. What are we doing? But Jesus insists. He's got to know. Right? She wants a cure. She wants something from Jesus. But Jesus wants someone. He desires an encounter with someone. Right? He's not okay just to dispatch the miracle and move on. He wants to know this person. He wants to talk to them. He wants to speak with them eye to eye. And this is what miracles do. They lead to meetings. They lead to discipleship. Right? Discipleship is not getting our needs met, right? It's about being in the presence of Christ, being known by him, following him. So the woman comes, falls at his feet, trembling with fear, but he responds with compassion. And he says to her, "Go in peace." Now this becomes a model of faith for Jairus. Because at this point now, they come and tell him that his daughter has passed. And they say, why bother Jesus anymore? It's over. And what does Jesus say? Don't fear. Just believe. Right? Look at this woman. She has fought through everything. She has risked everything, fought through the crowds to get to me because she had faith. And look at what happened. So trust me and have faith. And his faith and belief also pays off in a blessing. Probably a bad term, pays off, but you know what I mean. Right? He receives the blessing of receiving his daughter back to him because of his faith. And the whole episode with the woman serves as an example to Jairus when Jairus could have just packed it in and said, you know what, it's over. Right? Because he, as the people told him that, he could have just walked away. But he didn't. Right? Jesus heard it, encouraged him, and Jairus put his faith in him and was rewarded for his faith. And that's what we have to do. Right? We see these examples in the Bible. We have to have that same faith. The power of God will work in our lives when we wholly throw in with him. Will we do that? That's always a question. Have a great rest of your day. Lord willing, we'll talk again tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.